Welcome to the John Freakin' Muir Pod. Lace up those boots and sling on the pack for a romp through trails, short and long. With your host and Renaissance man, Doc. It's time to embrace the suck.
Welcome back to another week on the trail. I'm Doc, and this is the John Freakin' Muir Pod. Let's start off with a reminder. If you are enjoying the podcast, take just a minute, help us out, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. And if you're not enjoying the pod, well, just go ahead and keep that to yourself. All right, let's get on to this week's content. Well, this week we have a real treat. Have you ever wondered, how do I combine my love of the outdoors with a profitable and fulfilling career? If so, today is your lucky day. We are sitting down with Tayson Whittaker, the founder and CEO of the ultralight backpacking gear company, Outdoor Vitals. Welcome to the pod, Tayson.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Excited to be here.
We're excited to talk to you. Hey, have you ever listened to the John Freakin' Muir Pod?
You know, earlier this week, I started an episode and got a little ways into it between a couple meetings that I had. And so I haven't got a full episode in, but listened to a bit of one and thought it was awesome.
Okay. Well, hey, I only asked because I want to make sure that you are aware of a regular feature we have on the pod, and that is the pro tip insight of the week. So as we get to the end of the episode, I'm going to turn to you and I'm going to say, Tayson, what is your pro tip insight of the week? What little tip, trick, piece of wisdom can you share with our listeners to make their next outdoor adventure even more epic? So don't be surprised when we get there.
Okay. I'll make some notes down as we go here then.
Perfect. All right. Hey, another segment we've been doing is the Must Bring Gear Review. And for this episode, I'm going to call it the Must Bring Gear Review, sponsored by Outdoor Vitals. And here's how it works. If you were to let a stranger pack your bag with pretty much generic gear for a multi-day hike, what is the one specific piece of gear you would insist on being packed? And if you've got a particular brand for that specific piece of gear, even better. So Tayson, what is your must bring piece of gear?
For me, I'm going to go with my sleeping bag or my top quilt that I'm using. I use a top quilt, but I guess nothing's really changed for me, because when I started Outdoor Vitals, that was the first product we made because I felt like it made the biggest impact in my kit. The previous bag that I had was seriously, it was like 8 or 9 pounds, just this massive thing. It was like the size of, it's bigger and heavier than about my whole backpack and kit is now. And so I made massive gains by having the sleeping bag, but mainly I had a lot of cold nights growing up, like sleeping out with scouts, Boy Scouts, things like that. And I if I can help it, I don't want to sleep cold. So I'd say having the right bag, a quality bag, it's the biggest weight and bulk savings, and you just sleep. You're in at 8 hours. People don't realize that, but you're laying in a sleeping bag like 8 hours, and so that'd probably be the number one. I can tough it out with a backpack that might not be as comfortable or something, but I'd probably go with the sleeping bag.
Okay. And do you have a particular brand? Is there an Outdoor Vitals brand that you want to, or a particular model?
I'll say this is a little preemptive, but we just did a redesign on our top quilt that's going to launch at the very end of this month. And that's the 15-degree long version of that top quilt is money. It's money. So that's my preferred bag for everything.
All right. That's great. Now, I've always said that if, one of two things is happening, you're not having a good time out there. If you're not getting a lot of sleep, you're not having fun out there. And if your feet hurt, you're not having fun out there. So by having this particular piece of gear, that's going to help ensure a good night of sleep and better times out there.
Yeah, for me. If I was to add a second one, though, to that list that you just gave, would be hydration. And my Catadine Be-Free water filter is like I don't want to leave without that thing anymore.
Okay. Now you made reference to the weight of your kit. You're a gear guy. You're obviously a gear guy because you've got a gear company. So I love to talk gear and hear what people pack on their long distance trails. What does your pack look like? How much does it weigh? What are your big three?
So for me, my pack is typically between 10 and 12 pounds. I give a range because some people put out a pack weight, like this is the end all be all weight, right? But to me, every trip is different. The layers I pack, the gear I choose to bring for that trip changes. But as long as I'm feeling like I'm 12 pounds or less, I'm feeling really good. on the trail and just happy with where my kit's at. But sometimes, I'll throw in a Helinox chair, or I'm throwing in some fishing gear, or throwing in some extra layers, something, And so to me, as long as I'm staying between 10 to 12 pounds, I feel like I'm doing great. I can suck it down when I need to, down to about 9 pounds, but that's really kind of where I'm living.
Okay. And are you tarp guy, tent guy, cowboy camp? What do you think?
We've been doing some research in freestanding single wall tents. And so for the last year and a half, I've lived in those things, and I don't have any reason to ever change. 'Cause I mean, it's about as light as a tarp, like our single person, I can't even say it's out there because we've had some hiccups with production and COVID. It's literally not going to be here till next year, but you're looking at like 1.5 pounds for the whole thing. And so it's barely barely heavier than a tarp, but I get fully enclosed. I get a floor. I can keep debris and bugs out. And so that's my go-to, is a trekking pole pitched single wall tent.
Okay. So I've been going with a tarp lately because I'm trying to get lighter. And so if there is an option like that out there, that it's not going to break the bank, that's very helpful. Yeah,
there's a few out there that are currently on the market. The Gossamer Gear 1, that might break the bank on you. I don't know. It's a little bit more. And I have not tested this one, so I can't review it from like a high pedestal, but I just see it pop up a lot, which is, I think it's the Dan Durston one or something like that. It's for the money, it looks like a good deal.
The Dan Durston one?
I don't know what the model is, but it's a Dan Durston trekking pole tent. I think he's the maker of the brand.
Okay. And how about your backpack? What you have a specific brand you like to carry?
Yeah, so we have our own pack that we released earlier this year called the Shadowlight. It's basically, when we designed it, we said, hey, for a sub 2-pound backpack, what can we give you? So we kind of did it different. Where everyone else is just like, what can we cut off of the backpack? We said it has to be under 2 pounds, but like, what can we provide for under 2 pounds? And we put together just a really sweet pack. It's become one of our best sellers and just done really, really well for us. But what I love about it is it has a 24-inch frame, so you can actually get a load lift off your shoulders when you're carrying big water carries and stuff like that. So comfort is really there. It's got a lot of things that other ultralight packs don't, like extra, some different pocketing, more options in pocketing and access. And yeah, just all around, it's been like, obviously when you get to design stuff, you get, or be a part of the design. I definitely am not taking credit for all that. I have an amazing lead designer. But when you get to be a part of it, it's going to become probably your favorite. So it's exactly what we set out to do. So
very good. Now, I got a Granite Gear Crown 60. And I love it. I love the weight on it, and I love the way it feels. But there are not a lot of pouches up front. Not a lot of spaces where I can put stuff to keep it nice and handy. So,
yeah, we've got some big. We don't have anything on the shoulder straps trying to keep weight off the shoulders, but we do have some big hip belt pockets. Like, I kind of joked when we were doing the sampling and stuff, as I was just like, I lose stuff in these things. Like, they're so big, I like can't find stuff. And at one point I thought I lost my keys because they're so big. I dug and dug. Anyways, now they have a key clip because of that. But yeah, it's important to have access to stuff. So
yeah, if the founder and CEO has a suggestion, I couldn't find my keys. The designer, I can see, let's put a key clip on there.
Yeah, I didn't even just get one. I got 2 key clips on it now. So each pocket.
You've got some pull there, my friend. Very good. Now, hey, one question I like to ask to find out what level of ultralight crazy one of my guests is do you drill holes in your toothbrush to get rid of some of those grams?
I have broken off the end of my toothbrush, but I don't drill holes. So halfway.
I think you qualify, Tayson. I think you qualify. Very good. All right. Hey, before we get too far down the trail, let's back up a little bit. I'd love to hear about your background, where you grew up, what kinds of hobbies and sports you participated in as a kid, and how did that thru hiking cult rope you in?
Yeah. So for me, I grew up in a small town in rural Utah, but I didn't know it. I thought I was from the big city because we had about 5,000-6,000 people in our town, but everywhere else was smaller, even smaller farming communities. So we were the big city. We had the Walmart, you know what I mean? Like we were happening. And so yeah, I just grew up in a really small town, spent a ton of time outside. I mean, there just wasn't much to do other than being outside. And so spent a lot of time with friends outside, family outside. You know, and I actually didn't grow up per se backpacking and doing stuff like that, but I grew up a sportsman, you know, did some fishing, different things, even grew up on dirt bikes and stuff like that. So just loved the outdoors. And as I got a little bit older, just started to try to get farther and farther into the wilderness and farther away. But yeah, I mean, I grew up doing that and just spent a ton of time outside. I played some sports. I played football, defensive end. I'm about 6'3", 200 plus pounds. So that was kind of my role. And then I actually threw discus and did that a little bit in college too. So.
Okay. Where'd you go to college?
Southern Utah University.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just down here in southern rural Utah. Studied finance. So I always kind of joke that I'm a finance degree that loves marketing and learned how to design. So
got it all. Triple threat.
Yeah. Right.
And what is your experience with long trails? Have you ever done a long trail?
No. So I've never done a long trail. And this has kind of been coming up more recently in some stuff that we might start putting out as a company, which is I kind of fall in this category where went to college and right after graduating college was, you know, in love with my wife, got married shortly, and then started the company and that, and, you know, took over life. And then now I've got 2 little kids. And so I don't know if a long trail is ever like in my future, but I still spend, you know, 30 nights out a year. You know, it's just in increments and bits and pieces. And so you'll see us do, you know, this year we've got a couple, you know, 70-mile hike, 100-mile hike, just some different through hikes that we'll do as a company. And then other, you know, I've got a week in Colorado at one point that I've got going on. So just kind of take it in bits and pieces, but I can't attest that I'm, you know, a through hiker or have my through hiking name or anything quite like that.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. You know, we have jobs and responsibilities that don't allow us to take off for 5-6 months out of the year. That's you're like 99% of the rest of the people out there.
Yeah. And to be honest, that's kind of come on our radar recently where it's just like, we'd love to recognize and have, you know, ways, I guess, for guys like you and me to, I don't know, not like feel accomplished, but also not feel alienated when it's not like, hey, I'm not a through hiker. And it's kind of like, you get that like feeling like, you're not serious then. You know what I mean? Because like I am serious. I spend lots of nights outside out backpacking and putting miles down and stuff, but not 3 months at a time. I
know exactly what you're talking about because I've had triple crowners on this podcast, and I always have to throw out the disclaimer when I'm talking to them. You know, I've done the John Muir Trail, I've section hiked this and that. I've not done, you know, the PCT or the AT or the CDT, and so I always feel like I'm a bit on the outside a little bit. But I tell you what, I really enjoy talking to the unique brand of people that do spend that kind of time out there. They're a funny group of people.
They're funny, but like you can't do something like a through hike and not have it change you or have an impact on you. So I'm sure there's a lot to be learned from everyone, and they're going to learn something that, whether it be from a personal standpoint, gear standpoint, whatever fitness standpoint. They invested a lot of time in it. So.
Yeah. And talk about changing people. I've got a playlist on Spotify. It's called the Long Trail playlist for the John Freaking Muir Pod. And, you know, for our listeners out there, if you want to hear, if you just want to listen to the Long Trail guys and gals that have been on this podcast and hear what they've been through and how it's changed them, there's a lot of great stories out there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just out of curiosity, when you look at backpacking, how much of backpacking for you is like just getting out, being, you know, in the woods, stress relief, disconnect, and how much of it is like kind of goal driven, like, hey, I want to go and accomplish this thing, hit this goal, finish the John Muir Trail. I mean, that's a big feat. Like how much, it's hard to like say a percentage or something, but are both of those really important to you, or is it more so like hiking is a disconnect only, or?
I get a lot of enjoyment out of planning my hike. I think like 50% of the pleasure comes from planning. Where am I? Okay, where are we leaving? When are we leaving? What do I need to bring? Where's our anticipated campsites? What's that all going to look like? And then going out and doing the disconnect, and then being able to come back and say, you know what, I did this. And I think that is a huge part of why we do this, is because not everybody puts everything on their back and is out there for weeks at a time, going from this point in the morning to that point in the afternoon, and turning back at the end of the day and looking behind you and said, man, I just covered all of that distance. I think it really builds up a feeling of self-accomplishment and grit and confidence.
Yeah. I think that's great to hear, because I think, even something like the John Muir Trail, that kind of mileage and putting that down could change someone,
Yep. Absolutely. All right. Now, brothers, sisters growing up?
2 older brothers and an older sister. I was the youngest.
The baby of the family, huh?
Yeah.
6'3", 220-pound defensive end baby of the family.
That's right. Somehow they all squeaked out of there at like 170. So
very good. And did the 3 of them get involved in the outdoors, or are their careers centered around the outdoors like yours is?
No, I've got a banker, there's one brother, a chiropractor, another brother, and yeah, so they definitely are involved in the outdoors with me, and that's where we spend our family time for sure. One of my brothers, I could definitely give him credit too, to kind of push me into getting into ultralight backpacking. He was really getting into like hammock camping and some of that stuff. And so when I very first was getting started back in college and, pushing distances and trying to lighten up and whatnot, leaned on him a bit. But yeah, we spent a lot of family time out, but they're not per se directly involved with it.
Okay. Well, let's talk about how you got your start in backpacking. So there's a difference between, going out and fishing and doing outdoor activities, dirt biking. And it's another thing to say, you know what, let's put everything in a backpack and walk for days and sleep in the dirt and have a good time. How did that all start?
Yeah. A lot of it started with like my brothers, like I was saying, just wanting to get out away from people, whether it get into backcountry lakes or even in the hunting aspect, to just push the distances. But the more I like dipped my toe into just getting further into the backcountry, the more I just fell in love with it and was just like wanted to get back there. I love just getting back there and feeling more alone, feeling more in touch with nature. And man, sometimes it just doesn't take that many miles to get away from crowds and people and stuff. And not that that's a bad thing, that I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but that's really what drove me. It's just like, holy cow, like we're 10 miles back in here and, there's one way in, one way out. And just that massive disconnect really intrigued me. It just captured me to where I didn't even care for anything other than getting into the backcountry and getting in farther. And really since then, I don't know, like I'll cruise past a busy lake to go hike in somewhere or whatever it is, wherever we're going. It's like, where can we hike to? It's not where can we see from the car. I don't know. I'm just infatuated with high country. I love going high and I love going far back in there. So.
And so where have you gone? Where have you done your trips? Is it mostly in Utah, or have you gotten around the US and beyond?
Yeah. So most of it has been here in Utah. I was up in Alaska last year doing a little bit up there with a brother, actually. So that was a little bit more of a sportsman trip. Go to Colorado pretty frequently and backpack around the high top wilderness and some areas in there. This year I'll be going down into the La Salles, which I'm really excited about. But I would probably say like one of my favorite areas I've ever been to is just in the Uintas here in Utah. Just kind of like stepping into a different, it's probably a lot of the scenery is kind of like the John Muir Trail, right? Or
yeah, right. That's what I've
any
heard.
of that high country up there. Just, man, I'm going to go blank. The Wind Rivers in Wyoming, that kind of country is just, it's amazing. It's brutal. It's hard, but it's just like you step into a different world almost when you get that high up.
Yeah, I've had folks on who have talked about their trips on the Appalachian Trail, and that's referred to as the Green Tunnel because you spend a lot of time in and amongst the trees, and the view's kind of obscured, and that's great. There's something to be said about forests and trees, but I think that some of the most beautiful country is up above the tree line. Just like you're saying, the High Sierras, the Uintas, the Wind River, those all kind of had the same makeup, above 10,000 feet, and just the desolation and the rock and the alpine lakes. And it's just a different world.
Yeah, it's just amazing. It pushes you, and I think I'm kind of infatuated with just seeing as far as I can see. I love to get up on a peak and just look, and I could sit up there and just look forever. I feel like every time I get to the top of a peak, whether it be with my team members or whatever, they're like, "Oh, did it? Got the t-shirt? Like, let's go down." And I'm like, "Wait, let's spend like 3 hours just sitting." Yeah.
Right.
So I definitely love that.
Just don't tap the top and turn around. Spend some time up there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my son and we did the southern half of the John Muir Trail a couple years back, and we got a tip from an old timer on the trail about a campsite just below Whitney, just below Mount Whitney. Campsite was at 13,400 feet. We had the best view. It was incredible.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's amazing. That's a high campsite too. I mean, hopefully you're good on elevation.
Yeah. Luckily for us, it was the 8th day of the trip, and we'd spent most of that, 80% of that time above 10,000 feet. So
yep,
it wasn't too bad.
Oh, that's awesome. That's way cool. Way cool experience.
All right. So how have you seen gear change over the years? What was the gear like when you started out, and how have you taken that and said, you know what, I can do it better?
That's a great question. And I wish that I could answer this a little bit different, more from like a historic standpoint. But to be totally honest, I started my company when I was 23 years old. And so as I was even designing some of the gear and working on the gear, it was the best that I knew about per se. And so as a company, we've gone through these big jumps over time where, whether it be my knowledge, you bring in team members, you get the right manufacturing partners, our levels jump. And so I've seen kind of from what's happened per se in the last 10 years, pretty specifically in the industry. But also my perspective on it has changed a lot where, in the beginning, I couldn't even look at an Arc'teryx piece. You know what I mean? Like I just couldn't even imagine spending that kind of money on something. And so it almost like wasn't on my radar to some degree. But I would say what I've seen the most of in this industry in the last little while is there seems to be people just seem to be pretty dang willing to spend on good gear, which is a good thing, because a lot of times you buy and then you change it and then you change it and you change it. Before long, you got 5 sleeping bags and 2 backpacks and 9 water filters and 10 headlamps. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But instead, it seems like people are they're educating themselves on why. And so it really is driving innovation forward. And so that's why, like personally, I love to spend a lot of our time on the education piece, because if you understand kind of the background of it, you can make just a better educated decision. Our company's logo is an owl, which is a symbol of wisdom, right? And the reason that I did that was because to me, it was starting a new age. People don't act. You hear more negative comments about people going into a store like REI and talking to the sales reps and having them choose the product for them than anything else anymore, because people want to do their own research. They want to listen to podcasts like this,
right,
learn from people and make their own decisions. And so that's what I feel like has changed the most is consumers' knowledge has skyrocketed so much in the last 5 years, 10 years, that it pushes companies like us and everyone else to make better and better gear and become more and more transparent. And if you can make a better piece of gear and it costs a little bit more money, people are kind of more and more willing to spend it. Now, I love to be able to help people to get into the outdoors that can't afford it before. That was like a big premise of starting Outdoor Vitals, because we do everything direct to consumer. But I'd say that's been the biggest change, is the level of innovation that's getting pushed now based off of consumers pushing it forward and wanting more. It's very fast moving, and it's been pretty incredible, I feel like, to watch.
Yeah, we've talked on this podcast about the triangle when considering gear. In the triangle there's three points. There's weight, there's price, and there's quality. And so typically the lighter it gets, the more expensive it is, unless it's not good quality, right? And then and likewise with the other two components there. So those are big considerations to take a look at when deciding on what kind of gear to pack into your bag. And you're exactly right. I mean, if it's quality, it's not something you're gonna have to replace, every year or every 2 years, something you can live with for multiple trips. People are going to spend the money for it. Yeah. And they should.
And when you pay big money for something too, you take care of it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You buy a $500 Cuban fiber backpack or something like that. You typically aren't just trashing it on the ground at the end of the day and dragging it across a rock. And, you're just conscious, and people are conscious, and it ends up being, more savings and better performing gear.
Mm-hmm. Now, on the early backpacking trips with your brother or brothers, were you any stories about discomfort? Anything that inspired you early on to say, you know what, there's got to be a better way to do this?
Yeah. Well, I'll back it up even farther. In Boy Scouts, my dad, he slept in a trailer, right? We had a tiny little camp trailer, just an old, 20, 30-year-old camp trailer, and he'd drag it around, and that's where he'd sleep. I mean, the amount of times I saw him sleep in a tent, I don't even know. And so I feel like I had a pretty big disconnect with education. And I remember one time I went to this scout, overnighter, and, that they provided some big spring bar tents, but, you needed to bring your own sleeping pad, sleeping bag. And I just didn't know any better. So I show up with a bag rated for freezing, 32 degrees, synthetic bag, real cheap one that I think my mom won somewhere on a raffle, and I get there and I realize I didn't even bring a sleeping pad. Dang it. Oh, well, and we go and it's great. And then right as it starts to get dark, the weather just starts turning and it starts getting cold. The wind starts blowing and it was just cold. So everyone hops in their tents, and I go get in my tent and I get in this, summer sleeping bag, really. And that I probably wouldn't have slept in 50 degrees, knowing better, and no pad, no nothing. And I thought I was going to freeze to death. I knew I was going to freeze to death. And in the morning, I had to go to the bathroom so bad. And I was like, I can't get out of the sleeping bag. I'm so cold. Anyway, so I'm like, I just got to go as fast as I possibly can. So I unzip my bag as fast as I can. I run over the tent. I zip up as fast as I can. I just jump 2 feet out of the tent into about a foot of snow. And I just barefoot, and I just freak out. I'm like, what I was just so mad, freezing down, and then climb back in the tent, try to get my bag. And I just froze, and it was just the worst experience, right? Like you can imagine but that encompasses a lot of experiences I had. And so somewhere along the lines, I don't know how I continued to like the outdoors, with all the suffering I did as a kid. And it wasn't until I got into college and started doing my own research and just learning and stuff that I realized there's a better way and that there's so much more out there. And it was I felt almost cheated. I'm like, people have and especially once I bought a couple items, started using them, I was like, people have had this level of stuff this entire time. It absolutely blew me away. I could not even, I was so mad, but also enough so that I was like, we got to do something about this. And that's really where the company was started, was people got to know, and people got to understand that you can sleep just as well in the backwoods as you could in a hotel. You know what I mean? If you just know what you're doing and you have the right gear. And so, but yeah, even after the light bulb started to switch on, I don't want to knock brands, but there's a specific sleeping pad out there that seems like everyone buys and everyone gets rid of it. You wake up on the ground, or you think it's thick and comfortable and your hip hits the ground all night. Or bless my wife's heart, she was kind of the guinea pig for a lot of the stuff we were developing and trying. And and by the end of it, she kind of took a couple years sabbatical on any backpacking. So yeah, we definitely had some fun experiences once we even learning about it. You know what I mean? Back then too, there wasn't nearly even the YouTube content out there and stuff. So
right. You know, when I talk to people who, did the PCT back in 2007, I have to scratch my head and ask them, how did you plan for that? Because, what was available on the internet in 2007 is a far cry from what's available now.
Yeah, it's a whole different level of crazy than the guys that are doing it now too,
Right. And going back, I want to go back to a few points that you talked about there. One is the issue of suffering out in nature, out on these trips. And I think there's something to be said about how powerful, how transformational nature is to us, how it changes us, because despite all the stories of suffering that we've covered on this podcast, people still go out there. People have had miserable first experiences, wholesale sections of skin peeling off their feet and just misery. And they go back and they do it again. They do it again and they get better at it and get better at it. And so there's the positives of nature outweigh any suffering that you have to go through.
Have you talked about the 3 types of fun on your podcast?
No. What are the 3 types of fun?
Oh, you got to know those. So there's 3 types of fun, and you get to, almost everyone's experienced them if you've hiked a lot or done anything really that's worth doing, in my opinion. You've got level 1, that's fun while you're doing it, but you don't really care to like talk about it after. You know what I mean? It's like entertaining in the moment, and then it's kind of past. Then you've got a type of fun that's not fun really in the moment. Like you're not having that much fun, but afterwards it's like you just can't stop telling the story. You know what I mean? And a lot of times that's where we want to, like, where we end up living. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure on the John Muir Trail, there's times when you're like, this freaking sucks. Like, I do not want to be here. I want a Big Mac in my hand. I want different shoes. I want my bed, and you're like, this is not fun. But afterwards, like, you just love it. And you can't even think about it without this big smile on your face. And that's type 2 fun. And anything that I think is worth accomplishing is at least can hit a type 2 fun. If it's too easy, it's just not worthwhile. You know what I mean? And then there's type 3 fun, which is not fun in the moment and not fun to talk about after. And you don't want to go to type 3 fun, So, yeah, what you're describing right there is a lot of, type 2 fun, I feel like. And look, it's going to get hard. It's going to get challenging. There's going to be times you want to tap out. But after it's done, that sense of accomplishment or achievement just far outweighs any, pain during the process.
Yeah, we talked to IB Tat. He's a long trailer who's done the PCT and the AT. He's currently out on the CDT trying to get his Triple Crown right now. And his pro tip inside of the week, I don't want to steal your thunder in case you're thinking of this, but his pro tip was never quit on a bad day. If you're going to quit, quit on a good day. Don't let the circumstances make you quit.
Yeah. I runners say it a different way. I'm not really a runner, but at one point I ran with someone who told me this. And, they said, never decide to turn around halfway on a hill. You either commit to running the whole hill before you start, or you just don't do the hill to begin with. You know what I mean? And I resonate a lot with the same thing that he's saying. You don't quit on a bad day. You don't turn around halfway through. You either do it or you don't from the beginning, because you train yourself to tap out. You'll tap out way too often.
Yeah, that's very Yoda. There is no try. There's only do. Do or do not. Very good. And then the part about feeling cheated when you discovered that there was better gear out there, I know exactly what you're talking about, because I had on the pod Aaron Mayhew from Backcountry Foodie, and we talked about how to do food on the trail. And I got to look at her recipes and what was available on her website, and I thought, I've been doing it all wrong. This is a game changer. I've been eating ramen and payday bars. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, that's a changer too.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, even for me now, I can't even do like Mountain House. Some people love them. Like, I've got to go to the next rung up. It's just, it changes it for me too. But yeah. I mean, that feeling though, feeling cheated, to this day, the most crushing thing, like if at the end of the day I help with anything, I really believe that the more people that backpack, more people that have exposure to the outdoors and stuff like that, the more protection we'll get to the outdoors, and just the more good, I mean, whether it be from a mental health perspective, like getting out there and just connecting. We've got so much technology. We've got, mental health, emotional health, physical health, all these different things, plus just trying to protect the wilderness. And it's just all super, super important to me, I guess. And what crushes me more than anything, and what I hope that I can have an impact on over the course of my life, is when I hear people say like, oh yeah, I backpacked once. It's the worst thing I ever did and I'll never go again. Or like, I camped once and I froze my butt off and I'll never go again. That kills me. I'm like, oh, like I wish I could have got to you before you had that experience. I wish you could have come across our YouTube channel or, something, because it ruins it. The rest of their life, they miss out on one of the best things there ever is for us to access and take part in. And it's just gone because of one bad experience and a scarring moment,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then the last thing I'm going to talk about before we go to a quick break is the level 2 fun. That is that it's not fun in the moment, but you love to talk about it. I don't know about you, Tayson, but when I go to family gatherings now and they see me coming, they say, "Oh, he's gonna talk to us about hiking. We got to go. They go to another part of the house." So yeah, right. I come back and I try and tell people how transformative it is and what how epic it is. And I show pictures and they say, "Oh yeah, that's a nice picture." And I say, "No, it's not nice. This is not a nice place. This is an unbelievable place."
Right. No, I can sympathize towards that. I think my wife even just thinks that half the time. She gets it, but at the same time, she's like, "You're nuts." Like the amount of time you spend out there. Like I just don't. But yeah, it's. I feel like type 2 fun is something that more people need to experience it. And that's kind of why I've never been asked on a podcast, and I've done quite a few interviews, like what sports I played in high school. You know what I mean? Like, but I probably learned type 2 fun playing sports. That was a transformative character building moment when, you're just getting destroyed in football practice or something, or whatever it is. I kind of had a very disciplinary coach in football that it was more about the running than the football sometimes. But like I wouldn't trade that for anything. I mean, that taught me how to work hard and just how to do hard things, and if I hadn't done hard things, then I wouldn't have accomplished the stuff that I feel like I've been able to work hard and achieve. And I wouldn't do backpacking. I wouldn't do a lot of things that have brought some of the biggest joy to my life. I mean, even raising kids, like there's a lot of people that don't want kids anymore, and, to each their own, but there is a level of difficulty and there's a decision, when it's time to have kids or you're thinking about it, like it's going to be hard. It's going to be real hard sometimes.
Absolutely.
But it's totally worth it. It's one of the most rewarding things I've ever done and will be the most, at the end of the day.
Okay. And going to break, do you have a type 2 level fun story from the trail? Something that was not fun in the moment, but man, you like to talk about it.
Oh man. I've had frostbite twice, and both of them I would say were level 2 fun. This last one was just last year. It was up in Alaska. We did a fly-in drop camp, almost to the northernmost point in Alaska, out in the tundra. And me and my brother just got way out there, and at that point in the year, the sun barely goes down. And so it's just kind of like, man, it's like a 4-hour walk back to camp, or we could just huddle down on the side of this mountain for 2 hours while it's dark, and then back to doing what we're doing. You know what I mean? We don't have to go back to camp and spend like 8 hours hiking to and from camp. And so we decided to do it, and we committed, and should have been just fine. But I made a pretty stupid mistake on my part of not putting on my hip waders. And as I was crossing a boggy area, my feet got into the water. And so I had wet feet to start off this long, miserable night. And the thing we didn't factor in is it's dark for 2 hours, but it's like that gray light for like 2 hours on each side of it. And yeah, I remember waking up, in the middle of it and just being so cold. I just did not know what to do other than I was like, I just have to walk. I just have to get up and move, or I'm like, feel like I'm going to freeze to death on the side of this hill in Alaska, nearly thousands of miles from the closest city or anywhere. Right. And so yeah, I just sat there and just walked for like a half an hour, just totally like delirious almost. And suffered out the rest of the night. And the next morning I was like, I've done it again. My toes are not getting their feeling back right now, you know? So, and both of those times they lost feeling for about a month, and then it kind of slowly came back. But, you know, at the end of the day though, that was one of the funnest trips I've been on. And, you know, the reason that we stayed in that area, you know, paid off for us. And it was just one of those things where it's like, it's looking back now, I kind of chuckle and laugh about it. It freaking sucked in the moment, but, it's an experience and I'll never forget it. And that trip in and of itself was a dream. So
definitely type 2 fun. And just to clarify, you still have all your toes.
I do have all my toes, and they all have majority of their feeling. You know, if I've lost feeling, I don't know it. So
very good. I'll share a quick type 2 fun story because it's a great topic, and I love the way you phrased that.
Yeah.
We were in not Yosemite. We were on the John Muir Trail, 2015, myself, Chopper, and Buddy. And we were coming down from Forester, and it was raining, and then it cleared up. We dried out. We took our camp spot in Upper Vidette. No, sorry, not Upper Vidette. Tyndall Frog Ponds. Set up our tents, and the weather was so clear, I even decided I was considering not putting on the rainfly. And I said, almost at the last minute, I better put on the rainfly. Put on the rainfly. We get into bed. It's probably 8 o'clock, 8:30. You know, just before hiker midnight, and we're in there for about an hour in our individual tents, and here comes a storm, and you hear lightning and thunder in the distance, and you see the flash, and you hear the crack of thunder, like, you know, 30 seconds later, and then it's, you know, 25 seconds later, and then it's like 10 seconds later, and at some point it was a flash of light, and it was an immediate clap of thunder right on top of us, and it was just pouring all night long. I don't think any of us got any sleep more than, you know, 10 minutes at a time.
Did the lightning continue the whole time?
Oh, the whole time. We were just trashed
awesome.
in the morning. And the ranger came by and checked on us, and she said, you know, she'd been there 15 years and had never seen a storm like that. And so that was definite. That was definite misery in the moment. But man, love to talk about it. Very good.
Yeah, no, it's frightening, but I mean, that's way cool. That's seriously one of my favorite things ever. Like if you were to picture, like if I was to picture, like my happy place, again, out here, we have a lot of wildlife, but like one of the coolest things I remember ever experiencing is one time I was sitting up on this hill, had my binoculars, and I was watching these elk down below me. And there's these 2 younger bulls, and they're fighting, you know, and I'm watching them fight, and I'm at least 5 miles into the backcountry, not on a trail, just total backcountry. And they're fighting, and there's this one, it was like he just drew this line across this meadow, and he's like, you will not cross this line. And he'd chase him up and down the meadow, and he's like, you're not crossing this line. And I'm watching, all of a sudden this thunderstorm just rolls in, and you hear that thunder clap, and then you just hear the elk bugle back at it. They just scream back at the, you know, at the thunder, and it'd clap again, and they'd scream back at the thunder. And it was just one of the coolest. I mean, I've actually got to experience this a few times, but you know, that is like one of my like thunderstorms in the wilderness are so cool, and they can be terrifying. If you're up on some ridges and stuff, man, you're running what you feel like for your life, and they could be type 2 fun, but man, that sounds like a really cool experience. I'm sure you wish you got some sleep, but at the same time, like, yeah, how cool is that?
Yeah, it was freaking awesome. So, all right. Hey, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to get down into the nitty-gritty details on Outdoor Vitals, products, origins, early days, what it's all about, philosophy of the company, all that good stuff. So stay tuned for that. We'll be right back. And welcome back. Talking to the founder and CEO of Outdoor Vitals, Tayson Whittaker. And we're going to get into some details about the company. And we talked a little bit about kind of inspiration, but when did you actually decide to start up Outdoor Vitals, and how did that go? How'd you get it off the ground?
So I've always kind of been a weird duck, I guess you could say, in the sense that I knew from a really young age what I wanted to do. I was really interested in entrepreneurship and kind of the opportunities it provided, but also just the impact that I felt like it was the most I could accomplish is kind of, I guess, how I'd almost phrase it too. And so in college, I was going to business school and finance, and just always kind of looking for things to get my hands into. But really, I was hoping I could find something really related to my passions. So I was working at a company, I was doing an internship, and I found this other company that was doing some import export in a different industry. And I turned in a resume and never heard anything back. And so I showed up about a month later and I said, look, I'm going to come here during my lunch hour and I'm going to work for free. So find something for me to do. And showed up the next day with my sandwich, and, I ate my sandwich, and he crazy. I mean, he gave me basically his QuickBooks file and said, I haven't filed taxes this year or last year. Go ahead and catch our books up. And I was like, I've never done QuickBooks. Sure. Anyway, so I jumped right into it. And, then from there it was like, okay, this is where I think I could have an impact. And I was also just, I guess, to back up another step, I did spend some time in Singapore and Malaysia doing some volunteer work. Spent a couple of years over there in the middle of kind of my college time. And so I really wanted to link together that. I loved the people in Asia. I thought too, if I could bring jobs over there, it could just have such a massive impact on some people. And so I was kind of looking for ways to connect those. And then all while that's happening, I was just really getting into backpacking and just finding a true love for it, and started to acquire some gear pieces. I picked up like an Osprey backpack and some, pad and just some different things. And it got to the sleeping bag, and I was like, there's this massive discrepancy between what I feel like I can afford and what weight wise and size wise and everything I want. And so I just started looking and sourcing and found a couple factories and ordered a couple samples, and picked the one that I thought was the best. And thankfully I had by that point in time, I developed some skills in marketing and online marketing, and actually with Amazon, and I listed them up on Amazon and sold them and bought 3 more. I had about $500 that I put into these samples and stuff, and I bought 3 more and sold those 3, and I bought 5 and sold those 5 and bought 10. And then I said, hey, look, like I really want to design our own bag. I want to make these changes to it, and I want to put a logo on it and stuff. And like, well, you'd have to order 50 units. Keep in mind, no factory will do it for 50 units. This is where I guess where I got lucky as an entrepreneur. Like 50 units, it's a couple grand worth of sleeping bags. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to sell 50 units, 50 sleeping bags. I'm like, but I did it, and I got them, and I sold them in like 1 week, and was like, holy smokes, this is for real. So, took my wife's tax return and bought some more bags, and off to the races we went, But yeah, I mean, I was pretty scrappy. And like I say, starting at 23 years old, it was right as I graduated college. I filed for the business name the last month of my senior year and sold a product about a month after I graduated, and really kind of worked 2 jobs while I was starting it up, and worked a lot of hours, and just got it off the ground. And then from there, it was like, okay, now it's off the ground. Now let's build the company I really want to build. You know what I mean? And that's been the quest from then until now.
Yeah. Before we get to the expansion of the company, how'd you come up with the name of the company? Where'd you come up with the Outdoor Vitals? Was it something you always knew that this was what it was going to be called, or how'd that go?
No, it was just more of, I don't know, just looking for a name. Naming stuff is my least favorite thing to do. I'll be totally honest. When we'd have to name products, it's like pulling teeth at the office, I feel like. But no, it just kind of happened into my lap, I guess, and liked it and rolled with it.
You could always, I'm not just going to offer it up there. You can always go with like the John freaking Muir Pod sleeping pad. Just,
yeah,
possibility.
For sure. For sure.
All right. All right. So you got it off the
easier
ground.
than naming something.
Yeah. So you got it off the ground. What were the steps to expand the company? And what did you start out with originally? Was it just bags only, sleeping bags? And then, did you expand your product line?
Yeah. So what I thought I could bring to market was a direct to consumer outdoor company. And I'm probably wrong saying this, so don't quote me on this, but to my knowledge, we are the first direct to consumer company in this space, in this niche. And so my whole thing, especially being graduated from college, having next to no money, living on fumes, was hey, we're going to come in at by doing it direct to consumer, I can come in at a price point no one else can touch. And so I kind of benchmarked the Kelty Cosmic down sleeping bag and said, let me try to source something that would be on a similar level than that, beginner's level, and let's see if I can sell it for under $100. And so that's what we did. So I sourced about a 550 fill power down sleeping bag, and we sold it for about 99 bucks. And again, the goal though was to provide education. So if you go back to our earliest YouTube videos on YouTube, you will literally see me in this little duplex I had bought in front of a window with curtains on it. You know what I mean? That was my backdrop. I had a coffee table for my table, and I was sitting on a bucket, and I'm describing how to, take care of a sleeping bag, compress it, store it, etc. And, it's funny to go back because one of those first few that I did in that setting, has well over 100,000 views, but, so the big thing that I wanted to do was do it direct to consumer and provide education. I believed that people were they wanted the details, they wanted information, they wanted to know how. And so that's kind of the approach that we went at it. And, so yeah, launched sleeping bags and then kind of expanded in the sleeping bag line to begin with.
And then did you bring on additional personnel to help you run the company?
No. So I did it out of my tiny little 900 square foot duplex. Me and my wife were living there, and I did it out of there for about a year and a half before I even went full time. So I quit my day job after I'd earned more money in a single day with Outdoor Vitals than the month at my day job. Because I was just working nights. I just would work all night long on Outdoor Vitals and then work my day job. And I was like, I need more inventory more than anything. So why would I quit my job? So I had a hallway stacked floor to ceiling of sleeping bags. You know what I mean? We couldn't use our front door. It was scrappy. It was scrappy to say the least. And so I finally, about a year and a half in, went full time. And then about 4 months later, so got a place and then started hiring people from there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I know from taking a cruise around your website and looking at your story, there's a couple of sayings that I come across on a regular basis. One is living ultralight, and the other is opening the outdoors. What can you talk about those a little bit and kind of the philosophy of Outdoor Vitals?
Yeah. So kind of the original motto with Outdoor Vitals was opening the outdoors. It was that concept that we just talked about of like, man, if people knew there was good gear out there, and if we can bring it to people at direct to consumer prices, we could change out the outdoors for everyone. We could open it essentially for everyone else to experience what the rest of us are now experiencing. And so that was really the goal for quite a while. And so we got a little farther into it. Just kind of had some shifts, I guess, in what I wanted to accomplish. I wanted to build better gear. I didn't want it to be focused on budgets and price points. I wanted to build the best gear we could. And kind of like we talked about earlier, like sometimes just save more money by buying the right product first, and so it kind of started shifting from me feeling like we wanted to build budget stuff. And there just became this onslaught of copycats of our brand and others out there that were just undercutting prices and just wasn't what we wanted to do. I wanted to design better gear, not worse. And so we started to kind of shift from like just the concept of opening the outdoors. It started to get labeled kind of budget. And so we shifted this to Live Ultralight, which to me was more of where, our followers were, where I was, where our company was, which is, once you start to get into ultralight backpacking, everything else in your life, you start to filter through the same lens. You become almost a minimalist in other aspects of your life, right? I don't need 20 shirts. I wear these 7, I don't know, like not, you know what I'm saying though, right?
I do. Absolutely.
And you just start to just filter things through this concept of like, hey, I don't need to have this massive, whether it's just buying and wasting stuff, throwing it in the landfill, whether it's, hey, look, like, why am I checking a bag when I get on an airplane? I can do this with the carry-on, whether it's you're traveling in a car and you just pack lighter, like everything gets better when it's more ultralight.
You could do it with a 10 to 12 pound carry-on.
Exactly.
Right? 10 to 12 pound. Now don't
I'm taking my laptop and a book and no. but yeah, that's the whole point. And so that became like this thing, was like realized where, it's not just about ultralight backpacking gear. It's about being ultralight and minimal in a lot of areas of your life. And that's where it kind of became like our brand. If you really get our brand, and as we expand lines, we've expanded into apparel now. Soon later this year, we'll actually throw something into the travel sector. Carry on, right? We're a backpacking company, right? So, anyways, but like so on and so forth. And so Live Ultralight was really born, where it's like, it's no longer like, hey, here's the ultralight base weight. It's like, if you get the concept of living ultralight, you just apply it. It's just like, it's not so much that even anyone in our office is like, oh man, I weighed in at 10 pounds today and I'm at 11 and this and this. It's more like, don't bring more than you need and filter everything through this lens. And if you're even at 15 pounds, like, as long as you filtered everything and you're living your life in this manner, that's probably what you needed for this trip. And anyway, so that's that's living ultralight to us. It's minimal impact on the environment and the world through not buying so much stuff, consumerism and whatnot. And then it's also just being minimal in other aspects of your life. And then especially though, I mean, our core focus is ultralight backpacking.
Mm-hmm. And are you still keeping all your product lines in your hallway, blocking the front door?
No, I I shouldn't say that. My in-laws are living in the duplex now, so we've moved on, and we have a warehouse and a team, and so things have changed drastically since blocking off the hallway and stealing my wife's tax return. So,
and also I want to throw out a big kudos out there to your wife, to my wife, those of them. Those spouses out there who put up with our interests and hobbies and just our passions, and put up with what they have to put up with to let us work our way through it.
Yeah, for sure. Very super supportive. I can't say enough about that. We might not be through hiker crazy, but we're pretty crazy,
All right. So now if someone were to go to Outdoor Vitals, the online store, what sorts of products could they find there?
So really, I mean, our bread and butter is ultralight backpacking, and we've tried to slowly, create basically a place where you could go and acquire almost every piece of gear that you need, whether we make it or whether we retail it. We're trying to make it seamless. We're trying to educate and explain things to try to take more or less choices out of it. You know what I mean? So like some of the stuff we retail, for instance, is like we retail the Catadine Be Free because it's like a very proven filter for us. We don't retail 5 different filters. We retail the one that everyone in the office likes the most and has the most experience with and stuff. But yeah, for the most part for us, you're going to find sleep systems. That's where we got started. Moved into shelter systems. We've got backpacks. We've launched a handful of apparel pieces that have done really, really well. I think we've now pre-sold over $2 million worth of apparel via Kickstarter and different crowdfunding areas. And so, yeah, we've got a lot, and it just continues to grow. We're on a really good pace right now, and just continue to roll out product lines. So like going back to kind of that concept of living ultralight, if that kind of resonated with you, there's a good chance that if you come to our website, there's going to be a lot of things that feel very, very applicable to you and ultralight backpacking, and slowly into even more lifestyle stuff.
Okay. And I also saw something on Live Ultralight membership. What's that all about?
Yeah, that is, so being a direct to consumer company, I'm very anti-venture capital, which is how most everyone does it anymore, right? They go out there, they sell a piece of their soul to some investors, and they just grow. And so like I just mentioned, we've done crowd equity funding and some different things. And so we've kind of built this membership to be almost, I don't want to say a partnership, but we've built this membership where it's a store credit membership. $10 a month is all it is. And you instantly get $10 in store credit to spend on the store. But then we stack on a handful of other things, year-round discounts, free priority shipping. We early launch everything to our members. We've done pre-sales to our members. They get access to a closed Facebook group where, we're consistently coaching and giving advice in there and answering questions. Our I don't know, we've built in a handful of things. I'm going to forget them all. We do limited runs sometimes to memberships. But more or less, it's just a store credit membership that gives you access to a bunch of discounts and deals for us. And it's been a phenomenal thing. We launched it less than a year ago, and there's thousands of members in there, and they're awesome. The Facebook group has turned into a really, really awesome piece as well that it's been fun to watch. And yeah, it's just been a thriving, fun thing to see for sure. We've definitely, I can't say enough that we've got a very good group of customers, a very strong customer base, and I'm very thankful for them.
Fantastic. Congratulations. That sounds so exciting. You've come a long way.
Yeah. I mean, we really have. And I've, to even build a little bit more on kind of the company is, I talked a little bit about how, in the beginning, there was some, we kind of got labeled as budget. We were releasing things budget, and then we started to grow from there. And then we released a jacket called the Loftec Jacket. It was a jacket that looked like down, acts like down, but it's a synthetic piece. So you could totally soak it wet, whatever, compress it, soak it underwater for however how long. It's not going to fail like a down jacket would. And we pre-sold that jacket, and it sold over $1 million in pre-sales. And that was a huge turning point for the company, not because we hadn't done $1 million in sales to that point, because it was just a very iconic piece. And I was able to take that and then go get into A+ level manufacturers, these guys that were manufacturing for the Arc'teryxes and the Patagonias, and get into their factories. And ever since then, it's just been a ride. The things that we can do now, things we can design. They love to work with companies like us. They love direct-to-consumer brands because we don't have to design for price points. We design the best product we can, and then we're still going to be cheaper than retail. You know what I mean? Because of the direct-to-consumer, which, if you don't know what direct-to-consumer means, it just means we're not paying a retail store to sell our stuff. They're going to take like a 50% markup, 40% markup on gear. We don't have to play that game. So we're able to design more expensive gear, and then it's still it ends up being cheaper still than the retail brands. And so, yeah, it's just been a ton of fun, and we've gone through stages of Outdoor Vitals, and I finally feel like, the products we're launching, products we have launched and redesigned in the last 1-2 years, has been like, we've made it to what I dreamed kind of the whole time. But if you followed our journey at all, we didn't start, with money. We didn't start with experience. This is my first company, it'll be my only company, honestly. And we just started different than most companies out there, but we used Amazon as a stepping stone, and now we hardly do any business on Amazon, but it eventually worked into where we're at now. And it's been a lot of fun, and just very happy with the team and everything that's gone on to kind of create it and get it to the point where it's at right now.
Yeah. Is it a great place to work? Employees enjoy being there?
I think so. We don't really have turnover. So, yeah, we get to go, and we do a monthly trip with the team, 1, 2, 3 nights a month, and get out there. And we find that those, develop a lot of culture, and they also just give our team a lot of chance to experience the gear, use it, and just are a lot of fun. And I think the employees really appreciate, getting out there and doing that. And it's fun. Everyone has a lot of hats and a lot of jobs and stuff, but it's an exciting place to work, I guess.
That's funny you say that, because I work at a school district, and I offered up to the district office staff. I said, hey, let's do 2 weeks in the Sierras camping outside. And they all looked at me like I was crazy. So, I mean, I guess I'm just not in the right business for that.
Yeah. I think you ask any people off the street, something like that, they're going to think you're crazy, but.
Very good. Hey, what's the next adventure for Tayson, and what's the next adventure for Outdoor Vitals?
We've got some local stuff in the near future. The bigger trips we've got planned. We've got a trip to Seattle. We're hoping to get into Olympic. We've got some travel pieces that we've got to test that are kind of travel to mountain pieces. So those will be fun. We've got some development and work that we want to do there as a team. And then we're getting into some, kind of talking about like type 2 fun. We've got a 70-mile 2-night hike with a lot of elevation. So it's kind of one of those where we're going to be trying to cover about 25 miles a day through some really rough country. But that one's going to be a ton of fun. We're kind of putting together something that we've never done before, and the speed we're trying to do it, and some of the things that we're testing and pushing us to train ourselves more and get out there and do some trail running and stuff. And then definitely the pinnacle of this season right now that's in the books is the Uinta Highline Trail, which is over 100 miles going through the Uintas. It's a really good documentary out there about it called Highline. If you want to learn or watch a little more of this country, but it's kind of the same as the John Muir type of terrain where it's 80+% of it's over 10,000 feet. But we're going to try to crank it out in 5 days and do about 20 miles a day in that country. And so just this summer stacked with some really fun stuff. And then in between all that, we've got our own personal stuff and we've got all sorts of stuff. So hopefully in the summer, we'll find some time to work too.
Nice. Was that Outmersive Films?
That sounds correct. Yes.
Yeah.
I watched it a while ago and I just was about to rewatch it when we got it planned and on the books finally. But that sounds right. Even Darwin on the trail recently hiked it as well. That guy's a beast, man. They cranked it out fast. He's a
couple weeks ago, I had Chris Smead of Outmersive Films on the podcast, and his episode is actually going to air after this one. So this is almost like a little promo for Chris Smead's episode. It's
for sure. Yeah. Watch it. It's like, I actually think that one of the questions that maybe you had kind of sent over was like, what you do to like stay hyped up, right? Adventure media recommendations.
Yes, we're going to get to that. That's right.
That's it. We already hit it
right there. Okay.
I literally like stuff like that is I love it. I think it's amazing stuff because I love education, but it's like so inspiring to see the areas, the views. That's a great one. So when you interview him, let him know I gave him kudos. I think it's amazing. We're coming down the trail this year.
I already interviewed him. His episode's going to come out after yours though, so that's just the way it works sometimes.
Then go get a hold of it and watch the film.
Yeah. So. All right. Hey, my listeners know that I like to throw an impromptu top 5 list in every once in a while, and I thought it'd be very appropriate to ask you your top 5 best-selling products for outdoor vinyls.
The Loftec Jacket has continued to kill it.
How do you spell that?
I could write it better than I could spell it. Loft capital T-E-K. Loftec.
Loftec. Got it. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So the Loftec Jacket, it's just a phenomenal all-around piece. No worries. Be active in it. It's a puffy jacket is essentially what it is. It's going to compare to any puffy level jacket. The Shadowlight backpack has just been killing it. Like, incredible reviews. People are in love with it, and it really fills a void in the market. So check that one out.
Okay.
I'd say our top quilts would be the next one. Now, when this airs, we'll probably be out of stock on top quilts because we can't keep those things in stock. But by the time they come back in stock, we will be launching a brand new top quilt, which, top quilts historically have been designed from the hammock perspective and adapted to the ground. We went back and started with ground campers in mind, designed it for that because it's going to work fine in the hammock, I guess. But it's going to really reduce drafts, I guess is the best way to say it. So nice. Top quilts, definitely a big one. Our pads have done really, really well. I definitely want to accomplish more in the pad sector, so I won't push that one too hard. We're working. If you're designing something, don't start off with pads, man. There's so many patents out there you've got to look at and scrutinize, and there's some big players in the pad game that have done some good IP work, I guess you could say.
Hey, do me a favor, Tayson. When you're designing your pad, don't do one of those squeaky pads where it sounds like a bag of potato chips. Oh my gosh. I almost killed a guy on a trip. I couldn't take it anymore.
Dude, that's funny because I hear that all the time. Like, oh, the X-Therm is so noisy. And I've got an X-Therm before I cut it up, and it didn't bother me. It didn't bother me. And I expected to, like, I think I brought earplugs the first time I used it thinking it was going to be so bad. So you must be a little sensitive here.
Well, it didn't bother you, but what about the guy you were backpacking with? That's the question.
maybe that's the difference.
All right, one more, number 5.
Sheesh. Bestseller. That's tough. Our summit sleeping bags, I kind of are definitely in there, but I've already kind of touched on them. Here's a good one. Here's a really good one. We sell tens of thousands of backpacking pillows. Tens of thousands. We kind of use it to get our foot in the front door and let people know who we are. So if you want a backpacking pillow, you can get one for free. If you go to outdoorvitals.com/free pillow, or just search it or whatever, you'll find a page where you can just pay the shipping on it, and we'll send you a backpacking pillow. But there's a lot, probably hundreds of thousands of pillows of Outdoor Vitals out there, and it's a go-to. Even when I'm ultralight backpacking, I'm bringing a pillow.
Yep, for sure.
Well worth it.
Now, is that a special deal only for John freaking Muir Pod listeners?
Sure is.
Okay, excellent. See that? You're a listener, you get a special deal at Outdoor Vitals.
Or if you sign up for the Live Ultralight membership, let's say you go to our website, look around at some of the products, and you think, hey, I might be interested in buying something here. It's a no-brainer to sign up for the membership because you can cancel anytime, whatever. It doesn't cost you anything, especially if you're going to spend money. You're just going to get the savings, and we'll give you a free pillow for signing up. So then it's totally free. That's a totally free pillow. You don't even have to pay for shipping.
If you're a John freaking Muir Pod listener.
If you're a John Muir podcast listener, that's a behind the scenes. You don't have to put any like code in though, because there's that's how
Outdoor
important
Vitals,
you guys are. I don't want you to have to tinker with that. It's just show up, and we've changed the whole website for the John Muir podcast.
Yeah, Outdoor Vitals, they know who you are. So there you go.
Yep.
All right. Hey, Tayson, you know where we are?
I don't. Where
we are at that time of the episode where I turn to you and ask you for your pro tip insight of the week. What little piece of wisdom can you share with our listeners to make their next outdoor experience even better?
Okay. I didn't even have to think about this very long. There is something that I feel like is extremely overlooked. It's completely free. It saves you money, saves you time, anxiety, and it most definitely will save you weight in your pack. People talk about them a little bit, but there's so much more you could do, which is utilizing checklists. So for every trip that I do, especially every bigger trip, I'll save every bigger trip, I have a document in a Google Drive folder. I go there, I duplicate my last gear list. I go through my gear list, I look at the weights, I throw in my chair if it's a chair kind of trip, or a fishing pole, fly rod or something. And but that single piece is going to save you so much more. And the way that it saves you money is if you are using it before you buy your gear, meaning like you plug in your sleeping bag and you're like, whoa, I'm at 15-pound base weight and I want to be under 12. And you're like, oh, but my sleeping bag's heavy. Then beforehand, so you're not buying 2 sleeping bags. You buy the one, realize it's not good enough, adapt it, right? But I tell you what, like I can pack faster than ever with zero anxiety that I forgot something. It's totally free. It's fast. Like it's not hard. And then just like you said, you get a lot of kicks and bonuses out of the planning, right? So like this first trip we have, the 70-miler in 3 days, I'm already building my gear list, and I'm like, man, I've got it down to 8.9 pounds. We've got massive days, et cetera, et cetera. I've got to get this base weight as low as we can. We're going to move in most of the day. I don't need any camp comfort type, and you just start building it out, and it's a ton of fun, but also it's going to save you more weight, more time, more headache than anything else. So if you haven't already, go open Google Drive, open an Excel sheet, and start putting stuff in. If you want a cheat code, go to our website, scroll to the very bottom. There's a free checklist link. We'll send you an Excel spreadsheet. Just open it in Google Drive. You've got a baseline to start off of. And, but really it's a no-brainer, and you got to have a checklist. Like you really do. Like so that's my pro tip.
Excellent pro tip. The power of the checklist. Excellent.
Yep.
All right. So there you have it. That's it. This bonus episode for season 2 is in the books. Hope our listeners enjoyed our time with Tayson. Want to thank him for joining us this week. Tayson, how can our listeners keep up with you on social media, and where can they find updates on your latest adventures?
Two best ways. We do have a podcast as well called the Live Ultralight Podcast. It's a pretty, I guess, technical focused podcast. We talk a lot about gear and just tips and tricks type of stuff. So you can find us there, or our YouTube channel. We post, basically weekly there. So whichever is your preference, hit us up there and we'll see you over there.
All right. Remember to check out the pod on social media as well. We are on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. And if you have comments or clips you want to share, you can send it to me at johnfreakinmuir@gmail.com. Tayson, I was also going to ask you about a recommendation for adventure media, but you already threw it out there, Highline. I will also throw out to our listeners then to stay tuned for an upcoming episode with Eric Blem, who is the author of The Last Season, which is a great book. It's going to be my adventure media recommendation this episode. Go out and get yourself The Last Season. It's the story of Randy Morganson, who is a backcountry ranger for Sequoia and King Canyon National Parks, and for 30 years, assisted on many rescues and saved a lot of lives out there. And then one year he went missing. And so this is the story of what happened to Randy Morganson. Excellent story. Excellent story. So if you haven't read it, Tayson, I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I noted it down. I'll look it up.
Okay. And before we wrap things up, I'm starting a new segment called What Have I Not Asked You that you're dying to tell me about? Did we leave anything out?
I don't know. That's a good question. What have you not asked me? I don't know. I guess, you started the podcast off kind of saying, like, if you want to work in the outdoors, right? Mm-hmm. And create a career or something like that in this. I think that's like a dream of a lot of people is to do something like that. They all start Instagram accounts and so on and so forth. And I don't get hit up as much anymore, but I mean, someone on our team is getting emails probably every day. And so just some advice on that is look for what you can give to a company, instead of what you can kind of take from a company. And I think you'll find more and more success. Opening up relationships and stuff like that is really good, but there's a lot of guys, hit us up. They've got like 2 subscribers on YouTube and are like, want a sponsorship, and so if you want to get started or be a part of this industry, maybe take a lesson from even how I got started with importing products and selling online and working for free during my lunches and getting a foot in the door. But I think that there's a lot of great jobs in the outdoor industry, and I think everyone deserves to work somewhere where they love. And if you're interested in even working for Outdoor Vitals, hit us up. We've got a growing team, and so let us know. Yeah, that'd be just to wrap up that initial opener, I guess.
Okay, very good. That is a wrap from the John Freaking Muir studio. Any shout outs to friends and family, Tayson?
No, I mean, just the Outdoor Vital team. They're studs, and they're killing it. So,
all right,
they deserve a lot of credit.
Keep up the great work. Thank you for tuning in. Always remember, the trail is the trail. It doesn't care if you want to go downhill. It doesn't care if it's almost dark and you're looking for a campsite. It doesn't even care if you're out in the backcountry and the lightning and thunder is crashing all around you. The trail is the trail. Embrace the suck.